Welcome to another edition of Great Health, Abundant Happiness, and Outrageous Love. Mwah. This is another video we're doing on the Toxic Twin Flame Society. And we've got a whole discussion we're going to go down, but this was spurred on by, Karen and I are in some other twin flame groups. And there are a lot of people in there that probably shouldn't be in there, that they don't really have a twin flame. They just have some type of toxic relationship, but they're being told it's a twin flame, so they're going through all this pain for really no need. And we were just talking about, like, why are they in there? And and we're trying to go through how can we help them, and as you know, we're trying to provide advice. We have a great twin flame relationship. We've been together for 30 years, and we're just trying to share some of that. It's like we don't know it all, but we're trying to help some of these people we see in these groups, because we read the stories and it's painful. And that's the part that they keep bringing up, that is why does true love have to have all this pain? Or the twin flame journey, why does it have to have all this pain? And they're all chiming in like it does. And I guess what spurred this on, I said it didn't have to, and they didn't like that, right? Because my point was, if you've got pure love, and that starts with self-love, and then you operate from a position of gratitude. So you're full of self-love, you're grateful for all you have, you need nothing else. You shine through. That power has the power to overpower anything that's perceived as pain, right, Karen?
Right. Well, and in addition, when you have self-love, and self-love means self-value, self-worth. When you are complete there, you know it. So you can see it, you can experience it, you can give it, and you can receive it. And what we're seeing on these, in these twin flame, what we call these twin flame toxic societies, are people who are experiencing pain, and there is no relationship based on the information that we're learning with another person, other than the relationship in this person's mind that they have deemed them to be a twin flame, maybe based on the fact that they had some time together. Could be a week, could be a month, could be 3 years, but that relationship has ended. This other person, 90+% of the time, is with someone else that they're justifying as a karmic, instead of really looking at what the issue is. And it's really important too, if someone is your twin flame, even a soulmate, but definitely a twin flame, there is no harm in releasing them if you're not ready, because the universe will always bring you back together. And in fact, it's essential to release them, because your soul focus needs to be on that self-love, right?
I agree. But I'm wondering, do you even see them if you're not ready? As we were talking about, most people don't really see the opportunity if they're not ready. If they're not full of self-love first, it's really kind of hard to see whether it's a twin flame or that perfect soulmate. Or
when I first met you, I was definitely, that's a great point. Right. I was definitely not ready. So even though we met and I, thought that you were so like hot and all that, I was not ready. So I didn't see you in that light, because I didn't have that light within myself to be able to see it.
Right.
When we were brought together by the universe 3 years later, I was in a totally different position within my own self.
Right.
I was brimming, with self-love and exuberance and, love for everything. So I was not only able to see it the second I saw you, the fireworks went off and the lights flashed, because I had it within to recognize.
Right.
So it's just a big difference in what I had within myself.
Yeah, I think it's important. This is not just finding a twin flame. This is finding your soulmate. This may be a job opportunity. This may be anything on this planet that's available to us out there. You don't see it when you're not ready. I was just having a call earlier. I'm just gonna leave all the details out. but we're talking about an individual, and I said, look, he doesn't give himself credit. He has a lot more connectivity and connections out there than he thinks. And you had said he just doesn't have the confidence you do,
Right.
which
And he should.
it was kind of funny the way you said that. I said, you're probably right. But that being said, I'm just saying it applies to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have that self-love and operate from that position of gratitude, gratefulness, grateful for all you have. You need nothing else.
Right.
And then when you bump into this opportunity, whether it be a twin flame, a soulmate, or the opportunity of a lifetime here on this planet, you see it and you're ready for it. And it doesn't mean that things don't come in and shatter your confidence and your self-love, because we all have egos that keep popping back in. And to try to stay in this self-love or this consciousness of presence, to be in the moment, it's not 24/7. So things happen. Karen had said, earlier we were saying, well, what if someone said, hey, I lost a loved one, and that's a challenge, right? A challenge is this idea of pure love and self-love and all of this, right? Because it's a challenge. So we've lost loved ones in our family and friends, obviously. You hear us talk a lot about, Captain. Let's talk about that. So it's like not so personal, but that we had this little dog that he was like my shadow. We both loved him, but even to this day, what are we, like 2 years into this? I miss him every day. So it's when we lost him that day, I was pretty, I'm going to say, devastated at the moment. Until I kind of got back and got my presence. And I'll never forget, I walked out this door, I came back into you, I said, the sky's so much bluer, the colors are so much brighter, he's everywhere with me. So that was I'm gonna say that's the self-love coming back through, the strength. But then the ego comes back and it says, oh yeah, but you've lost this, you're never gonna see it again. Oh, poor me. And that's the tears and the pain, right? That's the pain.
So just to clarify, right, because this was so profound as we discussed it. And to be very clear, we've also lost family members. It's, I don't want to say easier to talk about, Captain, but it makes it just a little bit less personal.
Right.
But this was so profound. The loss of that love, of that beautiful little dog who brought us so much joy, the loss of the love or the loss of his life is not where the pain is. The pain is that our feeling is, or our emotions are set off because poor me, now I don't have that little ball of fluff to hug and to love on and all that. Their spirit is still full of the same love that they gave you.
Right.
So your feeling about them is still full of that same love. So the love itself never has pain. The love is so pure. It only has, this feeling of beautifulness. It's the loss of it or of the person that can create the pain.
Yeah, we use that as an extreme example because I don't know if there's anything more extreme than losing a loved one. So that's an extreme example. Then go back into everyday life and just use that concept. If you can get your head around that, I think most people can because as we talked about, we get it. Right. And there is pain out there in this life. The idea of pure love conquering all, we all heard this saying probably growing up, it's ages old, love conquers all. I never knew what it meant back then. It's just like, oh, interesting. But that pure love, when you have self-love, you can't really feel this pain in the same way. Do things happen? Yes. But you look at it differently. You think about it differently. Right. It's the ego that comes back in and turns that into real pain and twists the knife and how can I go on? How can I do this? This is so painful. How can love hurt me so much? This job sucks. These guys are, terrible. I got to go in there every day. Or, whatever. I don't like living in this town, whatever it is, because you've got your ego in there focusing on some piece of negativity. You don't have self-love, and you don't have a position of gratitude around it, because when you have that, it conquers all. I mean, if that makes sense, right? All the stuff you're talking about is petty. Right.
And here's a really interesting concept, because some people feel that if the relationship doesn't have the pain, then it must not be love. and that's not the case. And then they'll meet somebody who's so nice, who treats them like gold, and they'll say he or she is too nice. The reason this happens is the person themselves does not have the self-love, that they do not have self-worth and self-value. So when someone comes along and treats them like gold, they don't understand that, and they don't feel they're worthy. So instead of accepting that love, they don't really know how, and they also don't know how to, they don't know how to receive it, and they don't know how to give it back. And that's something that we're born with, but it's covered up, and we need to get back to it. And until we can get back to the position of self-love, self-value, self-worth, then and only then can we enter into a relationship that is really going to be meaningful and true love.
Right, exactly. And that's one of my biggest epiphanies as we're down this journey, that we're born into this planet as pure love. That's how we arrive here. And all these layers are put upon us by parents and society and teachers and all this stuff and social media. And as we're all, becoming older, you're in these different groups and mentalities. And people that are on a journey, stripping away those layers, I think they become more and more open to being pure love again. You're less competitive. You're less angry about little things. You're less concerned about all these petty things that we're talking about.
Right.
But it takes a while. It takes a while for some to get there.
Yeah, years.
And it's
sometimes decades, and sometimes people just never get there.
Well, and it pops in and out too.
Yes.
I was listening to meditation the other day about don't think about anything. You just like the more you can get into this presence of mind, not thinking about anything, just being in the now, in this moment. Staring into this fire and looking at the logs and not thinking about anything. But how long can you do that before thought comes in? I mean, we all have this monkey mind, like, I need to get out and do this, or I need to get that proposal out to somebody, or whatever it is. There's always something. But when you can just experience this life and not worry about all those petty things, I mean, that is like your true awakening.
Right.
But it's hard to stay there. So I guess I'm going back to the relationships again.
Yeah.
As we're saying this, that doesn't mean that you're going to be 100% bulletproof. Karen and I think have the best relationship of anyone that we know. With that being said, I may say something to set her off, and she's upset. Her ego may fire something back at me, and if my ego's present, fire back. So we could have words. Now, but I also say I could also catch myself, and I know you do too, because sometimes we'll laugh, where we can be present, and you step back, and pure love overshines the ego. This is my point about love conquering all. Mm-hmm. Pure love is overshining the ego. Like I don't even need to say this back to her, it's ridiculous. And we both, and you might say the same thing at the same time, we laugh. Right. Whereas when we were younger, the argument could have gone on a little longer.
Right, and I think a lot of that also is that you can be in bulletproof, full, 100% self-love today, and then maybe tomorrow you wake up and you're having doubts about something. And I think it's completely normal and natural for you to have these little, dips, these valleys and peaks of your own inner self-love and self-worth. I mean, and it's our ego. I mean, I remember when the girls were younger, and looking back now, it's like, was I the best mother I could have been? And Jeffrey always tells me that I am, and I know in my heart I definitely was not the best I could have been. I think we can always do better. I know that's a whole different conversation, but I'll start to have some doubts or thoughts, and that's where, when you're in a relationship like we are, that is definitely a twin flame full of love, it's okay if one or both people dip down. And I think we can recognize that in each other because we know each other so well. But sometimes you don't recognize that. Jeffrey and I were talking earlier, and you gave me an example of a couple, and maybe one of them went to work and some really bad things are happening at work, and maybe someone's vying for their job, or someone's giving them a hard, whatever the circumstances, they're coming home, and it feels to the other person that they're sort of on the, attack to them.
They're abrasive some way.
Or abrasive, right. Jeffrey and I call this kicking the cat, when the reality is it's because their inner self-confidence is being questioned by themselves. They are questioning it, right? Whereas most of the time this person doesn't question it, but something's transpired. And it's so important to stop when you're in a relationship and really listen to what the other person is saying, instead of taking what they say, internalizing it as against you or towards you. People are not in a relationship to come against you or towards you, but our ego naturally brings us always, it must be about me.
Right.
He must be upset because of something I did, or maybe he's not attracted to me anymore. And it has nothing to do with you, but what can happen is, if you plant that seed and you let that seed grow, and that's the seed you nurture, then that seed will actually come to fruition, instead of looking at the reality of the situation, which is, your partner's just having a really hard time at work, and, he or she is being compromised within, and you really just need to be a sounding board and let them know how amazing they are, and let them work it out, whether it's giving them a little space, some time, doing some healing meditation, or just being a listener.
Yeah,
right?
and you said something too, I just have to touch on this. So the person comes home, they're upset, they're saying something to their significant other, and the significant other takes it on internally and says, oh, this is something about me, because it's ego. Mm-hmm. That can't happen when you're full of self-love. I mean, that's what's wild about this. And what we're saying is, everybody lets their guard down now and again, but does that make sense? You can't have darkness in light. Like, when you're full of self-love, there's no way that little piece of anger or hatred can come in. It's only when your ego steps forward, and it's a weakness, if you will. But again, that's the beauty of this life.
I don't necessarily like the word weakness. I don't mean to correct you, but I think it's a human trait. It is such a human trait, right? Because, I believe that the spirit in itself, which lives on and has lived before, doesn't have that ego. The spirit is so much more
it's
pure.
But if you don't like the word, it's like, it's like you've let your guard down. It's like if you're on a diet, but you have a weakness for donuts, which I love donuts. You go by and your weakness, you eat the donut, and for your weakness. Or, what think about anything you're trying to do in life. If you let your guard down.
I think that's a great analogy. So you've got this person who's feeling so great about themselves. They're brimming with self-love and gratitude, and they're in this wonderful relationship. This is so simple, but this is so pertinent. And let's say that they're really, watching what they eat, and they're trying to be really healthy and, maintain this feeling that they have that feels great in this, physical body that they've chosen to have. And then all of a sudden they go and see a donut shop and stop and have 2-3 donuts. Now that same person who felt great at 9 a.m., at 10 a.m. is a totally different person sometimes. They're just not feeling so great. Number one, whole different topic, but all of that sugar is going to affect our mental state. Sugar is just, I'm against refined sugar for the most part. But what happens is that same person that at 9 o'clock felt like he was, at the top of his game, feeling great, feeling sexy, feeling vibrant, feeling brimming with love and gratitude, now at 10 o'clock is not feeling that same way.
Right.
That can happen just with natural things that we allow our ego to overshadow our true desires sometimes, and it happens.
You let it in. By the way, the great thing about this life is you have the freedom of choice. You get to choose. So it's always your choice. That's the other beautiful thing that I like about this whole conversation. It's your choice 100%. Now, you can feel it coming on. I mean, you all know this, right? When you're in an argument, like I could I could step back right now and calm this thing down, or I could launch this other rocket over there. Let me launch this other scud in, because I know this is going to be a painful one, and maybe this will prove my point. You know,
Twist the knife
but you
or
know,
stir the
but you
pot.
know that, and you're
Right.
making a decision to do
Sure.
that. You know,
Right.
and again, you might say, well, okay, I'm blinded by my ego, or if you don't like weakness,
And that's
I don't know what you want
And
to call
that's
it.
when we dip down from that pure,
Right.
bulletproof
I mean, what
self-love.
would you call, if you don't like
Just
weakness?
humanity. I mean, that's part of that's part of the human experience. The ego is a
Right, but it's a spectrum. So if when you're up here, you're fully present most of the time,
Right.
and you're down here where you're dipping down the ego a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you get up here? I mean, how do you do that, right? I think people.
Yeah, I think that you have to raise your vibrational frequency. Again, you and I talked about this a lot. There's really, is there good and bad? Is there weak and strong? Is there, all of these things are just words that we've created.
Yeah, just on a spectrum, it's so you
Right.
know which side you're on, dark or light.
Right.
Right.
So right now, the side that we're all on is the human side. Physically we're in these human bodies. So the ego is part of our human experience, and that again, another video on talking about that: past lives, future lives, present lives, and are we having more than one life at the same time? Totally, another
Right.
very interesting and exciting topic, but
Right.
just to bring us back to where we are on this topic, again, we're talking about this twin flame toxic society that is they're cultivating and nurturing this fact that these people who are part of this society, who are, most of them are not even with this person that they claim to be their twin flame, rather than really help the person who's in pain. And they're not in pain because their twin flame has blocked them, or their twin flame is dating somebody else. That is not the source of their pain. That's just the source of where they're reflecting everything, which unfortunately, the source of their pain, which needs to be relieved in order for them to ever have happiness and joy, can never be relieved until they understand all of that is within themselves and their own self-love. So we'd love to help you find your self-love. We have lots of tools of how to get there. I've been through it myself. I mean, I think I experienced it so much more dramatically than Jeffrey. So on that note, wishing you great health, abundant happiness, and outrageous love from the nest at Copper Mountain.
Thanks, guys, for listening. Love to hear your comments too.